The air is thick with the scent of burning herbs, myrrh, frankincense, and something else, something forbidden. It is approximately 1010 BCE. The hills of ancient Israel are cloaked in an unnatural darkness, and somewhere in a hidden cave near the village of Endor, a woman waits. She is called many things by those who whisper her name: a medium, a conjurer, a mistress of the dead. To most, she is simply the witch. But tonight, her visitor is no ordinary man seeking to speak with a departed loved one. Tonight, a figure cloaked in common robes approaches her dwelling. His shoulders are broad, his frame towering, the physique of a warrior. Yet his hands tremble, his eyes are hollow, consumed by a terror that no battlefield could inflict. This man is Saul, the first king of Israel, the anointed one of God himself, and he is about to commit the one act his own laws have declared punishable by death. Here lies one of the most disturbing contradictions in ancient history: a king who outlawed all mediums, all necromancers, all those who claimed to speak with the dead, now crawling through the night to consult the very practitioners he had condemned to execution. Why would a man risk everything, his throne, his legacy, his very soul, for one conversation with the dead? What happened in that cave at Endor? And did the spirit of the prophet Samuel truly rise from the grave that night? Welcome to Biblical Archives, where we excavate the layers of history, archaeology, and ancient texts to uncover what really happened in the ancient world. Before we dig deeper into this forbidden ritual and the desperate king who sought it, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a discovery. Every week, we explore the mysteries buried beneath the sands of time. Now, let's descend into the darkness of Endor. To understand what drove Saul to that cave, we must first understand the man he had become and the world that was collapsing around him.
The year is approximately 1010 BCE. The kingdom of Israel is barely a generation old. Before Saul, the Israelites had no king. They were a loose confederation of 12 tribes, governed by judges and prophets, united only by their shared covenant with their God. But the tribes had cried out for a king. They wanted to be like other nations, like Egypt to the south, like the kingdoms of Mesopotamia to the east. They wanted a warrior who could unite them against their most persistent enemy, the Philistines. Saul of the tribe of Benjamin was that man. The ancient texts describe him as standing head and shoulders above all others, a literal giant among his people. When the prophet Samuel anointed him, it seemed the Israelites had found their champion. For a time, Saul was everything his people hoped for. He won victories, he united the tribes, he pushed back the Philistine threat. But power has a way of corrupting the mind, and Saul's reign became marked by something far more troubling than military setbacks. He became paranoid, jealous, erratic. The texts speak of an evil spirit that tormented him, episodes of what modern psychologists might recognize as severe depression, anxiety, or even psychotic breaks. He flew into violent rages. He hurled spears at his own servants. He became convinced that everyone around him was plotting against him. And perhaps his greatest obsession was a young shepherd-turned-warrior named David, the man the people loved, the man Saul feared would take his throne. But the breaking point came when Saul lost something far more precious than his popularity. He lost the voice of God. The prophet Samuel, who had anointed Saul and served as his divine counselor, had died. The texts tell us that Samuel passed away, and all Israel mourned him. With Samuel gone, Saul had no channel to the divine.
When he prayed, the heavens were silent. When he sought dreams or visions, nothing came. When he consulted the priests and their sacred lots, the Urim and Thummim, there was no answer. And now the Philistine army was gathering. Thousands of warriors, chariots, and iron weapons massing in the Jezreel Valley. Saul looked across that valley and saw his death approaching. desperate, abandoned, terrified. He made a decision that would echo through 3,000 years of history. To understand what Saul was seeking and what the Witch of Endor was practicing, we must step back and examine the spiritual landscape of the ancient Near East. Necromancy, the practice of consulting the dead, was not unique to ancient Israel. In fact, it was remarkably common throughout the ancient world. In Mesopotamia, the civilization that gave rise to Babylon and Assyria, necromancy was an established ritual practice. Cuneiform tablets discovered by archaeologists describe detailed procedures for summoning the spirits of the deceased, called atemum in Akkadian. These rituals involved offerings of food and drink poured into the earth, the burning of specific incenses, and the recitation of lengthy incantations. The Mesopotamians believed the dead resided in a shadowy underworld called the Irkalla, or the land of no return. Consulting the dead was seen as a legitimate, if specialized, way to gain knowledge of the future or to solve problems the living could not address. The Egyptians had their own traditions. The Book of the Dead and countless tomb inscriptions reveal a sophisticated belief in an afterlife and the continued existence of the Ka, the spiritual essence of a person. While Egyptian religion focused more on guiding the dead to the afterlife than summoning them back, there is evidence of practices designed to communicate with deceased ancestors. But in Israel, things were different. The Mosaic Law, the religious and civil code attributed to Moses, explicitly forbade these practices. Leviticus chapter 19 commands, "Do not turn to mediums or seek out spiritists, for you will be defiled by them." Deuteronomy chapter 18 goes even further, listing necromancy among a catalog of detestable practices, including child sacrifice, divination, sorcery, and the interpretation of omens. The punishment for practicing these arts, or for consulting those who did, was severe: execution. And here is where the story becomes truly ironic. The ancient texts are explicit. Saul himself had enforced these laws. He had driven the mediums and spiritists out of Israel. He had executed those who practiced necromancy. The Hebrew term used for the Witch of Endor is Baalat Ob, literally, mistress of an Ob. Scholars have debated what exactly an Ob was. Some believe it referred to a spirit guide. Others suggest it was a ritual pit through which the dead were summoned. Still others argue it may have been a particular type of vessel, perhaps a skull, used in the ritual. Archaeological evidence from sites across the ancient Near East supports the existence of such practices. Excavations at Hazor, Megiddo, and other Canaanite sites have uncovered ritual pits, offering deposits, and what appear to be ceremonial spaces associated with chthonic or underworld practices. The woman at Endor was practicing something ancient, something that predated Israel, something deeply embedded in Canaanite religion. And she had somehow survived Saul's purge. The ancient texts set the scene with remarkable detail. Saul, gripped by fear, disguises himself. He removes his royal robes and dresses as a commoner. He takes only 2 trusted servants. Think about this for a moment. The king of Israel, the tall, commanding warrior who had once been the hope of his nation, is now skulking through the night like a criminal, terrified that someone might recognize him. They travel under cover of darkness to Endor, a small village in the territory of Issachar, nestled in the hills overlooking the Jezreel Valley. Archaeological surveys of the region have identified the likely location as the modern Arab village of Endor, though no remains of the specific cave have been conclusively identified. When they arrive at the medium's dwelling, Saul makes his request: "Consult a spirit for me. Bring up for me the one I name." The woman is immediately suspicious. She knows Saul's laws. She knows the penalty for what she does. "Surely you know what Saul has done," she says. "He has cut off the mediums and spiritists from the land. Why have you set a trap for my life to bring about my death?" Saul swears an oath, invoking the very God whose laws he is about to break, that no harm will come to her. Reassured, she asks the critical question, "Whom shall I bring up for you?" "Bring up Samuel," he replies. Samuel, the prophet who had anointed him, the prophet who had later rejected him on behalf of God, the prophet whose silence in death had left Saul utterly alone.
What happens next is one of the most debated passages in ancient religious literature. The woman begins her ritual, and almost immediately something goes terribly wrong, or terribly right. She lets out a scream. "Why have you deceived me? You are Saul!" Somehow, in the act of summoning, she has realized who her client truly is. Some scholars suggest that Samuel himself revealed Saul's identity. Others propose that the intensity of the spiritual manifestation made her understand that only a king would dare summon such a powerful prophet. Saul calms her. "Don't be afraid. What do you see?" Her answer is chilling. "I see a spirit coming up out of the ground." The Hebrew word used here is Elohim, a term that can mean God, gods, or divine being. The woman sees something so powerful, so otherworldly, that she uses this extraordinary term to describe it.
Saul asks what it looks like. She describes an old man wrapped in a robe, the signature garment of Samuel the prophet. And then Saul bows down, his face to the ground. Samuel speaks, and his words are not comforting. "Why have you disturbed me by bringing me up?" Saul pours out his desperation. "I am in great distress. The Philistines are fighting against me, and God has departed from me. He no longer answers me, either by prophets or by dreams. So I have called on you to tell me what to do." Samuel's response is devastating. "Why do you consult me now that the Lord has departed from you and become your enemy? The Lord has done what he predicted through me. The Lord has torn the kingdom out of your hands and given it to your neighbor, to David. Because you did not obey the Lord has done this to you today." And then comes the prophecy of doom. "The Lord will deliver both Israel and you into the hands of the Philistines, and tomorrow you and your sons will be with me." Tomorrow, death for Saul, for his sons, for his kingdom. Saul collapses. He has not eaten for a full day and night, and the weight of this pronouncement destroys what little strength he has left. In a strange moment of compassion, the witch, this woman Saul had once tried to exterminate, takes pity on him. She slaughters a fattened calf, bakes bread, and feeds the broken king before he leaves to meet his fate. For 3,000 years, scholars, theologians, and historians have debated what actually occurred that night in Endor. Was it real? Did the spirit of Samuel genuinely rise from the dead? Or was this an elaborate deception, a clever manipulation by a skilled practitioner of psychological manipulation? Let us examine the possibilities. Some ancient Jewish commentators believed the entire event was a fraud. The first-century historian Josephus was ambivalent, while later rabbinic sources suggest the woman may have used ventriloquism or tricks of shadow and smoke to create the illusion of Samuel's presence. But this interpretation faces problems. The text describes the woman herself being terrified, hardly the reaction of a fraud in control of her own deception. Furthermore, the prophecy Samuel delivers comes true exactly as stated. Saul dies the next day at the Battle of Mount Gilboa, along with his sons. Other scholars propose a demonic explanation. In this view, the spirit that appeared was not Samuel, but a deceiving spirit, a demon masquerading as the prophet. This interpretation was popular among early Christian writers like Tertullian and later Protestant reformers. Yet this too is complicated by the text. The prophecy is accurate. Samuel speaks truth about Saul's sins, about David's succession, and about the outcome of the battle. Would a deceiving spirit deliver such precise, truthful information? A third view, held by many ancient Israelites and later Christian interpreters like Augustine, is that God genuinely permitted Samuel to return, not through the medium's power, but through divine intervention. In this reading, the woman's own shock suggests that something happened beyond her control, beyond her usual tricks. Modern scholars approaching the text from a historical critical perspective focus less on the supernatural question and more on what this story reveals about ancient Israelite religion. The existence of this story in the Hebrew Bible suggests that belief in the continued existence of the dead was present in ancient Israel, despite official prohibitions. It also reveals the tension between official Yahwistic religion and popular practice, a tension that archaeology confirms existed throughout the monarchic period.
Excavations at Israelite sites have uncovered household shrines, figurines, and evidence of practices that the biblical texts condemn. The religion of the common people was often more complex, more syncretic than the prophets would have liked.
The story of the Witch of Endor is, in many ways, a window into this hidden religious world, a world of practitioners who served a clientele desperate for answers, who preserved traditions older than Israel itself. The next day, Saul's fate was sealed. The battle against the Philistines was catastrophic. The Israelite forces broke and fled. Saul's sons, Jonathan, Abinadab, and Malchishua, were killed before his eyes. The king himself, wounded by Philistine archers and facing capture, fell upon his own sword. The first kingdom of Israel ended not with glory, but with the sound of a desperate man begging a dead prophet for guidance in a dark cave. What does this story tell us? It tells us that even kings are not immune to fear, that power cannot insulate us from the terror of facing the unknown alone. It tells us that in the ancient world, the boundary between the living and the dead was far more permeable than we often imagine, that cultures across the Near East believed, practiced, and struggled with the possibility of communication beyond the grave. And it tells us that forbidden knowledge comes at a price. Saul sought answers outside the boundaries his own laws had set. He received those answers, but they brought him no comfort, only the confirmation of his doom. The Witch of Endor disappeared from history after that night. We know nothing of her fate, whether she survived the Philistine invasion, whether she continued her practice, whether she remembered the night a king came begging at her door. But her story survived, carved into the texts that would become sacred scripture, a reminder that even 3,000 years ago, humans were haunted by the same questions that haunt us still. What happens when we die?
Is it possible to speak with those who have passed? And if we could, should we? If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of history's most mysterious rituals, please like this video. It helps the algorithm show this history to more people who are fascinated by the ancient world. And now I want to hear from you. First, do you believe that what appeared in the cave that night was truly the spirit of Samuel, or was it something else, a trick, a demon, or a psychological phenomenon? What's your interpretation? Second, Saul spent his reign executing necromancers, yet in his darkest moment, he turned to one himself. What does this say about human nature when we are pushed to our limits? Can desperation justify actions we would otherwise condemn? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I read every one, and some of the best discussions happen right here in this community. Make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on, because next time we're exploring another mystery buried in the sands of the ancient world. Until then, keep digging.